in there.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Hello. So I am, after many, many moons, many, many years, I am heading out. As I said, I moved to Portugal. So in this place, which means it's time to finally do something that's been on the docket forever. Yeah, sign some books. It's good to see you guys. I miss you. I appreciate you. None of this would be possible without you. My fans are the best, the best, the best in the world. So anyway, I actually have a helper today, my boy. He's helping me to get some of this stuff done. So if you guys have any questions, you can pop up, and figured I'd talk to y'all while I am doing this. Maybe not on this one because it is reversed and you wouldn't be able to see the pictures because the screen is facing me and people are asking questions. Simon. On this one.
On that one?
But it's facing me.
Tell him to stop!
You would not be able to see it. So, yeah, we're going to figure all this out.
Yeah.
It's okay. We could just stop it and restart it. I don't know.
On this one?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, sorry, Instagram.
All right, so, sorry, IG. You're not sideways, I'm sideways. And sorry, IG. At least we're on my professional account this time. Yeah. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Good to see you. So one of the cool things about going through this is looking at the iterations of what has happened, right? So you can look at this one, right? The land, Raiders at the top, Alaron Kong at the bottom. And the reason it looks like that is... Oh, no, man. Technical difficulties. We're going to get this straight.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
The reason it looks like this is because the land was my first series, and I didn't necessarily know if I was ever going to write another one. But then when I expanded out, I was like, well, the main common thing can't be the land anymore. It's got to be Alaron Kong. And then so we switched it around, right? So we've got Alaron Kong at the top. It's more prominent. It's the kind of thing where it's you never really notice, especially since everyone kind of just joins whenever they join. But it really is one of those sort of hidden evolution of a writer type of thing, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a weird, awesome, dope journey. There's so many things that have happened. I mean, again, we found this, right? So this is one of my very, very first original sort of covers. That was, black and gold's very important to me. Shout out. And yeah, so it was just for the mist. It's me and a dude on Fiverr for $20. We made this. And actually, this one's a misprint because this is actually the land forging, and so it says it right here, but founding is on the front, or vice versa. Let's see. Yeah, so actually this is founding, but it says forging on the side. When you write a book in 6 weeks, things can sort of slip through. But even that, and so I switched from that cover obviously to the one that you guys see with the archer looking down at the Mist Village before he claims it. And surprisingly, as soon as I did that, because I was I like being unique, whatever, and some authors that I really respected were look, man, you seem like you're really legit about this, so you gotta package it the way that it happens. And honestly, I switched my covers up, and my sales went up by 50%, and they never went back down. And it was one of those things where it's I'm an author and I'm a writer. So it doesn't really matter which one it is, but let's say that being a writer means literally just taking the time to write out your stories and things like that. Being an author is knowing the business of it. I'm a physician, right? So I know how to handle AFib, strokes, heart attacks, that kind of stuff. I'm super cold at it. But I don't necessarily know how to manage my team, how to make sure that the billing gets done effectively. How do I make sure that the social work or whatever. So that's a whole another skill set that I've learned. And so being an independent author kind of means that you need to learn all these different facets of the industry. And I don't know, you do 1,000 different things and 999 of them don't work, but then one of them hit, and you're always moving so fast, if you're being creative, if you're really about your business, that you change thing after thing after thing after thing, and you have no idea. You have no idea what's happening, right? So I I don't know. It's interesting. Like a lot of times, like I get messages and emails from other up and coming authors, or like fans are like, I always wanted to write, and so I'll give you the same answer I give them. Like there's 1,000 things I could tell you about how to become a successful writer, author, blah blah blah, right? But it's like if you were trying to tell somebody like, how do you please a woman? Well, there's some things not to do. There's definitely some things you should do, but there's an overall sort of approach. And the answer that I give people when they say, well, how do I, write a book? How do I handle my business? The best answer that I've been able to come with is a little existential, but I honestly believe it's true. And it is, write something that you would want to read, right? Because I think that if you have joy and excitement when you write, it comes across on some sort of metaphysical thing, or maybe you just write better stuff. That people know that you had fun when you wrote certain scenes. It's one of the biggest compliments. It's like when some of my fans read something, they're like, "Oh, he had fun when he did this." It's sort of like back in the day, like when we would go to people's houses and they cooked really good. It's like, "Oh, you put your foot in it." Like you can feel that the same way you can feel when you're on the phone with somebody and they're smiling, right? That's something that they teach when you're doing sales marketing. Like you can feel that there's something that comes across. Now, maybe you believe in levels of energy that we haven't learned to figure out yet. Maybe you believe it's just our subconscious mind. I don't honestly think that it's a distinction without a difference. The point is there's things that we can access that we are not quite smart enough to do individually. And I think that if you pour yourself into your work, if you pour yourself into your story, if you're writing the book that you wish everyone else had always written, which is sort of what I did with The Land. I wrote a story that encapsulated some of the things that I'd fallen in love with the, not even 10,000 hours, but the 50,000 hours, however many hours is reasonable, that I spent reading books in the library, in random bookstores, late at night under my covers with a flashlight because my parents had yelled at me to go to bed, and we were old school. We whooped your ass if you didn't obey. But all those hours, right? And things where I'm always like, oh, it would have been cool if such and such. And then because LitRPG is the intersection of video game and sci-fi fantasy, any games where I'm like, oh, it wouldn't have been so much better. And what's exciting, and I think a lot of you guys probably feel the same way, is that when you get into LitRPG, it gets a little hard to read other books because you don't quite get that fix. But also playing games, it's like we're able to create games that are not reliant on the technology of the day. They're not reliant on paying off whatever investors had, and that's why they keep regurgitating the same thing and putting up paywalls and all the other drama that we hate, right? We're able to create games that are only limited by our ability to converse and our imagination, which is dope and amazing. So yeah, going back to my original point, for anyone that always wanted to write a book, it does take a lot of work, like everything worthwhile, including love, including relationships, including anything, including getting less face on your face, believe me. But yeah, it really just comes down to that. Write something that you personally would want to read, and then just have faith that out of 8 billion people, which is a number so big we can't even really conceive of it, your tribe is out there. And, after that point, you write something dope. I can give you some more specifics on how to do this and whoop whop and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's kind of an amazing ride. So, we have any questions that I can answer? Anything that people want to know, my bro?
Yeah. This is a nice, very specific one. Does the spell Acid Sphere have no cooldown? Can it be cast over and over until you run out of mana?
Okay, so I will say that for that, because I do not have my documents in front of me, but I wrote low-level spells to be quite impactful if you do not have magic or physics against another low-level enemy, but easily defeated for somebody that's really in the mix, really in the game, right? I want there to be a difference. I want all of my magic systems to sort of reflect real life. If you've never taken a boxing class before and you do it for like a week, you can probably school someone that has no idea what they're doing. But once you start, because there's usually a massive spike in how good you are at something just as soon as you start getting educated and getting in it. But once you get in it, every incremental of out of 1,000, I'm 1 higher, that takes another 10 hours. For every incremental out of 10,000, I'm 10 higher, that takes 100 hours. And so that's sort of the thing. generally the cooldowns for level 1 spells are like, only a couple seconds or not, so that you can spam it. But then you're still limited by your mana pool and what kind of fighter are you or mage are you, where you're going against prey that are matching up to your level at like level 40, that an acid spear is going to do anything. All you're going to do is piss that dude off. So if you thought you found a hack, we're going to get in that booty. Basically, I guess was what I'm saying. So, any other questions we can ask? And I mean, for that kind of stuff, just nerd out. Just nerd out. Like, you can see it. All right. What else can I answer for you?
The standard, hey, what's going on with book 9? But a new one in the fold. What's up with book 10?
That is, all right, so yeah. Book 9 is, all right, so this is what I said, right? I took the time away that I needed. I was very concerned about, like, how this is going to impact my career or my fans going to be here. But real talk, y'all are here. That's why you're here. I'm so lucky to have such dope fans. Thank you. And I will also say I give grace. You've given me grace. If you've been frustrated, if you've been concerned that something that you love wasn't going to continue, I get it, but it is going to continue, right? So I don't know when book 9 is going to come out, but I am doing, as I promised, my words are safeguarded by my actions, to give you guys updates. So I have basically almost finished re-listening to book 1 right now of The Land. There are just so many really fun things that I'm rediscovering because, again, I wrote that book basically 10 years ago at this point. And it was all kind of with a plan, but it was also has evolved a lot. When I first started writing The Land, I wrote the ending to my entire catalog of books first. And I did that because of a certain CK. I always say, I did that because George R. Martin, it just seemed really frustrating that, like, he didn't know where he was going to go. And so I wanted to make sure that I removed that kind of issue because, yes, Khaleesi's hot as hell, but we want some resolution. And I will defend it. I do not come at, like, Game of Thrones the same way everyone did for, like, how it ended. Yeah, it wasn't great, but, it isn't easy to do this kind of thing. So, like, I'm happy that it exists, And I think that's one of the things that we lose. Talking shit is great and all, as long as you take it with a grain of salt. That, like, I'm happy that this exists. I would rather something exist and not really be down with it or wish they'd gone another way than it not, right? So I wrote that early, and then I also wrote like sort of 5. I actually did 7 because it's 7 numerology. Like 7 major plot arcs for The Land, thinking that every 2 to 3 books, maybe I would get to one of these major plot arcs. What I didn't know, because I was concerned initially, like, how could I ever write enough words to fill up a book? That's not the problem. I'm a writer. Wrote the first book in 6 months, wrote the first 6 books, including this beautiful guy, in the first 14 months. That's insane, right? So the problem for me wasn't how do you come up with enough words to fill up a book. The problem is how do you stop yourself from coming up with words so that you can publish a book, because the words keep coming. And so I never ran out of plot lines. In fact, there's so much more that I want to get to, because I hadn't even gotten to what I considered was going to be the first major arc, because the characters have evolved. And as I learned more about being a writer, as I embraced this sort of profession of being an author, a narrator, a storyteller, part of this, like, one of the most time-honored things since time immemorial, the way that we communicate, share wisdom, share joy, share pain, right? My understanding evolved of what this all meant, what it took to be true to yourself, to connect with people, to ideally have my work be a source for good in this world. When I first started writing, my primary goal was and remains is to tell an enjoyable story. I love stories. They're like my favorite thing in the world. Whether it's like hearing somebody read to you when you're a kid, or watching TV or movies, or hearing a musical that does something like Les Mis, like, kills me, or reading books, which is obviously my favorite. I love stories, right? So, all that being said, I've evolved a lot in who I am and how this has sort of, like, happened. So anyway, long story short, what's up with book 9? I've got too many plot lines to even fit into one book. I promise you, I will not again do the George R. R. Martin thing where I write a book about only half the characters. Book 1 was always meant to be a return to the beginning. That's why, book 8 was always meant to be a return back to the beginning. As you know, 7 numerology is very, very important to me. And that's why it was focused solely on Richter. And honestly, I thought people were going to be super into that. It never occurred to me how much love everyone had for the Mist Village as itself, for Alma, for Crom, for Calder, right? For all these great characters. And so, as opposed to what I thought was going to happen, like wetting people's whistle, right? For like, oh my God, this is so cool, and what's going to happen next? It was instead like, where is the love that I've been waiting for years for? I honestly felt like I fell into the same trap as like Matrix 2. Not a great movie. But not a horrible movie. But it felt horrible after the amazing magic of Matrix 1, and then a several years wait, and then we got to that, right? You guys had to wait several years for book 8. It didn't move quite at the same clip, and honestly, I wasn't in my perfect space, which is one of the reasons that I took so much time away before I wrote Alpha. In addition to, again, less face on the face. I'm still proud of the book. I love the book, but I can definitely admit, like, the energy wasn't the same as the pure active creation that I'm having now, that I had when I wrote Alpha, that I have as I'm rereading all these books now. And so that, right, like the fact that maybe you didn't hear me smiling on the other end of the phone, coupled with the weight, I understand, right? Which is why I think it's really important, and as I've said before, to differentiate, thanks bro, differentiate art and fame, right? I've told you, I came across this Indian comedian who, again, I always say this joke because I think it's funnier than people think it is, where he was so famous as a comedian that they put him in a Bollywood movie, and apparently the Bollywood movie was so bad that they said he was the worst thing to happen to India since England. That is like one of the worst things you could possibly say to somebody. So he's like, and honestly, it hurt me, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I took a step back. He's like, but what I came to realize is that my art only belongs to me. It doesn't belong to you, or you. It belongs to no one else besides me. It is personal. It is precious. It is only mine. But my fame only belongs to you. Like, you control it, you own it, you have been generous enough to share it with me, and I hope you continue to do so. But they're two separate things, and if I am chasing fame, something that belongs to you, I am not honoring my art. I'm not giving you the thing that made you feel I was worthy of the fame that you shared with me. And that just made it so clear. If I am living on my square, doing my thing, creating the books that resonate from me, which is how I connected with you because you are my tribe, things are going to work out better. And if I am chasing those likes and whatever, and let me be really clear, I will take the likes. Please like and please share this to your feed and all that, because this is also my job. I'm not above anything. You can ask Love of My Life. I do dirty things. But as far as like how I just sort of handle business, yeah, like I gotta write what feels right. I gotta write what feels cool, and that's gonna keep me from being this like mass-produced BS that I hate too. So yeah, book 9 is coming. I'm going to, the promise that I've made you guys that I am living on right now is that you're gonna get information as I get it. So. I have written various things. I'm taking more notes. I've sort of settled on like a pattern for me where like I listen to the earlier books, but then I don't wait until I've consolidated everything because that's a recipe for paralysis. I'm writing a little bit here and there when I'm not doing this or packing, because honestly, anyone that's packed it sucks.
Oh, nice. So
yeah, this thing has been in my family forever, right? It is one of our only, I guess you could call it an heirloom. It's probably worth however much the copper's worth, but to me it's priceless. And I think I heard this when I was a baby growing up, and it's one of the few things that I got from my parents when I became an adult, and I don't know. It's one of the things that I'm going to hold on to. I'm not a big believer in things. I like that line from Fight Club: "Things you own end up owning you." I agree, but there are some things that maybe have a little bit of energy in them that are beautiful. This is one of those things for me.
Piggyback question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As you're rereading the series, have you come across plot threads or items you forgot about? Without spoilers, of course.
One of my greatest things that I love is I was writing the books very fast, as I said. 6 weeks from the first keystroke to publishing on Amazon for book 1, 6 months for book 6. So I think in book 3, I think it was, Richter's underground, and I have this whole scene where he has to like find kobold eyes and then pulp them, and they're disgusting, and he drinks it and da-da-da. And then after I put it out, one of my fans was like, "Oh, I love that series, but like you realize that he has a hood that does night vision." And I was like, "Damn it." So initially I was like, okay, so I can just go back and edit that and pretend it didn't happen. And I'm like, nah, I'm the kind of guy where it's like, if I make a mistake, you own your mistake, you be a man, take the hit. So instead I worked it into the into the book, as I'm sure you guys know if you've read it, where somebody like comes across Richter and he's talking about how he has to do that, and they're like, well, why didn't you just use this? And they start laughing, and he just like loses his shit and he starts beating on them because he's like, you think you're better than me. So there's definitely things that I did not remember until I got there. No major plot threads, because like I said, I wrote the ending of the book before I published the first book, and I wrote the major plot arcs that I haven't really gotten to, even to yet. So there's no major plot arcs, but there are like little nuances where I was like, oh yeah. And then I go back to my notes where I've got like literally more than 100 pages of just bullet point notes, each of which is worth a paragraph to a chapter, right? So all of that, right? There's things that I'm coming across, which is why I'm refamiliarizing myself with it, honestly. You guys have probably read the books more than I have at this point, which is amazing and awe-inspiring and cool. And so look at this. Look at this old paperback. I haven't published one of these in like 7 years, man. Like I don't even know when is the copyright for this. Yeah, so this was 2016. This book is like 8 years old, right? And that was one of the things. Like I thought that the era of paper books was done, and it seems like Book Talk is bringing it back, which is like reclaiming a piece of our past. It's like an engineer relearning how to like create a type of technology that had been lost. And it might, I personally believe, like in that old idiom that I'm sure you guys hear, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Us remembering things that were important to us, that were amazing to us, that were vital, right? We might find the solutions to our current day problems in the past because our mothers and fathers already dealt with it. So I think that the Book Talk community and the fact that we're leading to this resurgence and celebrating like the art of reading just might be what saves us as a species, honestly. I think it's super dope. So that is cool. And I am excited to be holding this paperback book. It makes me all misty-eyed, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So there's a thing that you're supposed to do, or like you turn the book, whatever. I was gonna do one where I'm like, hey, so I've got a favorite book. Can you guess? I'm not gonna give you any other hints. You can just beat somebody to death with it. But anyway, I'll show you later because, like you guys, I'm a true fan. That's how one of the reasons I've been able to do all these Easter eggs, which, as you guys know, I'm huge into, even more than I'm into cliffhangers. So yeah, I will share. You guys can probably already see it right here. It's literally face up. But one of my favorite books. We just do the whole thing for the thing. And again, please please share this to your feeds. Please tell friends about the AKU. I'm an independent author. I do not have a publishing company behind me and a big marketing team. I've got my boy over there wearing his Lemonizer outfit. We'll show that. I will sell him for a night to the highest bidder. That's basically what I'm saying. So we do this thing, and then we do this thing, and then we kind of like do it like this. But anyway, S.M. Sterling, who is a very brilliant, honestly, just a hyper intelligent individual who does a lot of research, wrote this amazing series called Dies the Fire, which is basically about a simple premise of what happens to humanity if electricity goes away. And it's not as simple as that. It's like other like high energy things like sort of go away. So like gunpowder can no longer ignite, so guns don't work. And what happens to society? I think a lot of people, I mean, some of you guys know, some of you don't. Like a lot of people don't really realize how precarious our civilization is. There's an old saying that the line between anarchy and civilization is 3 meals, or maybe it's barbarism or something like that. But basically, it's like most human beings in the U.S. have never missed a meal, maybe never missed 2, and certainly haven't missed 3. There's so much affluence, right? There's definitely people that are suffering, but out of the 330 million, the fact that so many people are fed is kind of crazy and like an outlier for human history, right? So, what happens if you lose the ability to get new food to Publix? What happens if the water cleaners no longer work? What happens when the pipes no longer pump water out? What happens when the toilets back up? What happens when the cars don't work anymore and trucks can no longer bring daily food to population centers of 1 million, 5 million, 30 million? What do? Who gets stronger? Who are the most violent people already? And what happens when they're no longer afraid of guns? Because guns, I mean, like, it's an amazing sort of like apocalypse, honestly. And I definitely took some inspiration from the starkness of it. And actually, it was on my to reread this. I didn't quite get around with it because I was just so busy. But like S.M. Sterling is an amazing, detailed writer who has written, I don't know, definitely more than 10, probably more than 20 books. And I got to meet him. And his lovely wife, who is now passed, unfortunately. But I recommend it. It is an amazing, dope book. You can probably find it in some local bookstore. The smell of old school paperbacks is amazing. And there's this, if you're in a fight, like that's always a good noise to make. But yeah, so that's the thing. So, I don't know. Updates. Javi has redone the ding, so that is really cool. And also there was one error, definitely only one in the audiobook, where I hadn't updated a table, so I think he's gonna be redoing that too. I'm super lucky to have worked with him, the same way I was lucky to work with Luke, and Nick's my boy, brother from another mother. He's my buddy. I love that guy. And for those of you guys that are concerned, Nick will always be the voice of the woman. And I would love it for Luke to always be the voice of God's Eye, and for Pavi always to be the voice of Alpha. It's very important, in my opinion, for creatives to step outside of themselves. There's like a guy that was talking, he's like, it doesn't matter how good you are at playing the violin, how good you are as a writer, how good you are as a sculptor. If you only spend time in your studio, you will never truly honor your artwork, because the world and how you interface with it, how it reflects with you, what it grows out of you, is part of this act of creation, part of us being integral, amazing people who can create something that resonates, that communicates. It is very difficult to define art, but the best thing that I've come up with, and it's a little clunky because it's very difficult to define art, is that art is something that communicates what is inside of us when mere words, mere communication doesn't do it. So when you feel something, when you are moved by something, that's the purpose of art. I've had this idea that if you look at all of the civilizations that exist in the universe, and to me, the idea that in the immensity of the cosmos that there's no other life, alien life, is insane. I do not think that they're coming here and anally probing us. I've been in with a lot of colonoscopies, mostly for fun. It's just not that interesting once you get in there after the first couple of inches. The first couple inches are really where the money is. And I just don't see a lot of aliens flying cosmically to keep figuring that out, personally. Maybe they're freaks. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But I do believe that in the immensity of the cosmos, other life exists, right? And I was sort of thinking about that. So if you operate under the principle that other life exists, and if you operate under the principle that natural laws are more or less similar, which is not how my universe works. And definitely for the noisy girls that are in the back, maybe we can close the door so that they can be noisy as much as they want. If you sort of believe that, right, then one measure of a civilization can be how far they've technologically progressed. But that's more of like a timeline, because given enough time, if all the natural laws are always the same, we'll always come up with basically the same kind of technology, right? Like a light bulb might look different, but it's still a light bulb. A computer might look different, but it's still a computer. Maybe it's faster or not, but like we're kind of coming up with the same stuff with just little nuances. So that might be one measure of a civilization. But the other measure of a civilization must be in what we create and what we believe and what we have fought for, what we believe, what we love, right? And that is our culture. Those are our stories. That is our artwork. And that is the only thing that truly makes us unique, right? So like our stories, our art, while it is easy to discount them in this age of practicality, that they undercut music programs because they want more math, that you easily say a physicist is more valuable than a songwriter, right? I don't necessarily think that's true. I think you need both. And I think that while you absolutely need engineers to make sure that we don't die every day when we drive down the roads, you need a reason to drive down the road. And what's the point of life without passion? Really? What's the point of being with someone without love? Right? Like it's not just idle words. It's what literally lets us survive. Because life be lifing and life is hard, and practical stuff is not a good enough way to survive. It turns you into not a great person. Believe me, I've seen it. So anyway, that all being said, anal probes are probably only like a one-off. All right, what other questions can I answer?
Well, Josh McGriff wants to know, is that a snooker table?
Is that no? It's a pool table, my guy. It's a pool table. It's rectangular.
You're moving to Europe.
I'm moving to. Yeah, I know. And chocolate cigarettes and sausages and things like that. Like, yes, I am moving to Europe, but I'm an American moving to Europe, right? Like I said, so true. I like barbecue, boobs, bandam. All the good B words, like, a nice brewski on a cold day. And, I'll learn snooker because, I don't mind being a little snooty. But no, at the end of the day, man, like, yeah, nice thing at 8-ball, talking the shit, hoping that she doesn't overhear you. That's the kind of dude I am. So, and that's the kind of dude Richter is. And that's what you're going to get. I always want my books to be, fantastic situations with normal people, because I think that the world is fantastic as long as we can view it that way, and we will always be where we are. And if you tell people that you have to be a hero to do something amazing and to stand up for things, maybe they never will. But if you tell them that it's just about individuals doing their best, not being perfect, but just doing your best, maybe on a given day, somebody will do their best, and maybe they'll save a life, and maybe we'll survive as a species. Like, that's my faith. That's my hope. So,
here's another question. How does one know what one's affinity is without gaining that skill first?
See, that's actually really fun. So there's tech that I have written a whole fucking backstory for about how to do that. But one of the things that I feel like I've been good at portraying is that it doesn't matter what world you go to, self-interest still prevails. So the tech, so to speak, of how to understand what kind of affinity you are, that's not sort of like ubiquitously known across the land. Maybe in a society that focuses more on warfare, they've done a little bit more research in that way, so it's easier to sort of like scour the local villages for anyone that might have a really great axe affinity or a really great longsword affinity. Maybe they're leaving money on the table though because they haven't really paid as much attention to light magic, and they might have somebody that could become a master light mage, right? So like that kind of like self-interest is one of the things that I think makes sci-fi fantasy, LitRPG much more interesting, where you do have these fantastic areas, but again, it's a normal person, and how does that impact it? How are we made more by our humanity, and how are we made so much less? I told you that my primary goal as a writer, as an author, as a storyteller, was to tell an enjoyable story. I want to write something that moves people. But I also learned that is not enough for me. It just wasn't from the very beginning. Before I published the first one, I said, that's just not enough. So I want my books to be agents for social change. The question is, how do you do that? I have learned, and I decided before I published the first book, that probably yelling at people on the internet doesn't really work. Never really worked for me. Nobody likes it. Even if you're telling somebody something right, like you should shave more on your face, they might fight you just because they don't want to hear it, right? So what I came up with is the idea that I termed called systematic desensitization. I write a black main character. I am a black man. I think that is important because I think that diversity matters. And let me tell you, like, there's several reasons, but let me just make it very practical. If you come from this side of the forest and I come from that side of the forest, and you have red mushrooms and I have green mushrooms, and a plague happens, right, where you need to combine red and green mushrooms to cure the plague. If you only have somebody from the red mushroom side, you're never going to cure the plague. If you only have somebody from the green mushroom side, you're never going to cure the plague. But maybe if you have somebody from both sides, you might be able to do that. The reason diversity is important is that as a species, we're being tested, and I really don't think any one group has the answer. We are not going to make it unless we can pool our knowledge and our viewpoints. That's why it's important. So, and you know, that's like the very practical like reason, and there's others, but it's very important to me, right, that I write a story that reflects who I am, and that people that look like me, that come from my culture, right, not just about being black, but come from my culture, can see heroes that look like their culture, that can see writers that come from their culture. And it's very important to me that I can also interface with every culture as well as I can, right? So, all that being said, right, because I think I lost my train of thought and I'm going to keep talking in the hope that you guys don't notice. It's very important to me that when I write these books, I'm putting out an energy and a style that shows somebody like me can do this, and that lets certain readers know that somebody like me can do this, because I think that your upbringings were probably a little similar to mine, that if we go 2 generations back, they said some stuff that we would never put on social media that they said. But maybe, right, if you've heard something about somebody that looks the way that I look, but you like my lives, you like my books, it balances out what you heard over here. So now it's not just, I heard that these people are X, but you also heard, I heard that these people are X, and I also know this guy who does Y, right? It's why it's important for men to talk to women. Believe me, you will save yourself a lot of headache. Do not listen to dudes about women. Similarly, women, you might want to ask a guy or two. We know a lot more of the lies. It could save you some time. So, I don't know. That's sort of that long answer to that. I hope that resonates with y'all.
What are your other interests besides writing and medicine?
Less face on my face is my primary interest now. I had no idea I could ever feel this good. What's interesting about that question for medicine, right? When you are a physician, and in case anybody wants to know, like, I'm not like Dr. Dre. I am a real doctor. I have a medical degree. I practiced for 5 years at Kaiser Permanente. I take care of broken bones, heart attacks, strokes, AFib. I've held a human heart in my hands, and I've carried a severed leg over my shoulders, and that was just on a Friday. So I've done all that kind of stuff, right? I was on a panel once with a bunch of other physicians talking to like 500 students. And we're talking about this and we're talking about that, and I'm a little atypical for every group that I've ever been in, but I'm talking to these, various, kids, and at the end, we were taking questions, and I'm answering this and I'm answering that, and one of the questions is, why is medicine your passion, right? And this is like, you're applying to med school, you do blah, blah, blah. So I was the last one to answer. And they're telling these kids things like, oh, well, once you see the joy on a child's face, there's just nothing that'll ever fill you. And it's like, oh, well, devoting yourself to helping your fellow man, blah, blah, blah. And, like, it's true, but I know what these people say when they're not around. Like, yeah, it is true. They're also bitching about the hours they're working. They're not having the balls to, like, really be like, oh, no, it's amazing. Like helping a child and seeing that really brightens up your darkest day. And there's other times where, like, those kids won't shut the hell up, and that's really annoying, but it's worth it because of the beauty of hearing this child laugh. That's a real answer, right? So anyway, it gets to me, and they're like, it's like, same question, why is medicine your passion? And I was like, it's not. And there was, like, literally, like, a clutching pearls gasp, like, and I'm like, kids kids that are like 25. Because when you're in medicine, everyone feels like a kid unless you cut your teeth, like really like a lifesaver and heartbreaker. I'm like, guys, this is a job, like it's a job. It's a very important job. I think it's a more important job than most, to be quite honest, because I was involved with saving people's lives. I was involved with being there for families on their worst day, and I took pride in it. I was an amazing physician. I saved a lot of lives, and I communicated well with my patients, which I honestly think makes me one of the best physicians that was out there. Not necessarily the one that knew the most esoteric things, not the one that scored the highest, but I was really good at saving lives, and I was really good at connecting my patients and making them an active part of their healthcare, which, in my opinion, is necessary for someone to truly be healthy. You can't just keep throwing pills at someone without helping them understand. And so that's one of the reasons that I was very proud of what I did as a physician. But so yeah, I gave this answer like it's not my passion. And then I just sort of broke it down for them. I was like, hey, there are days that just suck. And there's days where you just feel unappreciated. And you are making more money as a physician. But real talk, if you average it out for the amount of money that you owe and the years where you made no money and you actually just, like I said, owe $250,000 to $500,000 for your education, you're making less than a waiter by the time you're like 50. And you should not do this for money. You should do it because you love helping people. But it is okay for you to need to have a brew, need to take a walk in the forest, needs to do whatever. And I think you'll be much less likely to burn out. You'll be much more likely to actually keep giving true health to your patients if you acknowledge that. And I think that we lie to people a lot, that they have to fit this role that is unrealistic. Because I can just make it very simple. If you have a doctor that's well adjusted and healthy in his mind and not miserable, do you think you'll have better care in a hospital than the same doctor who's miserable and is hating his life and dreads going home? I mean, that's the same thing. I try to take that, and that's honestly one of the reasons that I stepped back for the last several years to take care of my health, where it's like, I could have kept grinding. I could have pushed out, we could be on book 15 of The Land right now, but would it be the joy that you guys fell in love with? I don't think so. I really, really don't. Maybe other people, that is their path, where they just grind it out and it's like whatever, but that's not my path, and that's not how I can make this for you, So I don't know. I think that I try to, my intelligence is very foundational. If I understand the basis of things, I can extrapolate higher than most people go, but I have a very hard time leaping from peak to peak. I need to understand things at a base level. And so I always try to dumb things down, which is also how I used to teach. And not to toot my own horn, I was voted intern of the year and then teaching resident of the year 2 years in a row. I was #1, and they hated me for it. I try to simplify things down so that you don't need to be an expert for me to explain something to you. If I can't explain it to an average person on the street, I don't know it well enough. So I say all that to say, I think that the approach to life, if you want to simplify it, should be 2 things. Know your Tao, walk your Tao. Know who you are. Be honest. Be unabashed. You don't have to share it with anyone because it can be a little embarrassing. But be able to sit down with a blank piece of paper and say, what do I want? And write it down so that you can be honest about who you are. And if there's things on there that you find shameful, that's something that you at least now know that you should work on. And if there's things on there that you think other people would feel shameful and you don't want them to know, you don't have to tell them. As long as you're not hurting anyone, right? So that's the first part. Know your down. Know who you are, right? And then have the courage to walk through life like that as the world is trying to turn you into something else. Because the other forces around you, your family, your nation, your religion, your whatever, like they have an idea about what you should be. And I don't think that anyone will ever truly be happy if you can't evidence who you really are, right? And it applies to everything. Should I take this promotion that moves me to Albuquerque when I live in Atlanta? Maybe you don't care about living in Albuquerque. Maybe you'll be miserable. But if you know that, like, I need access to really good Thai food and there's no Thai food in Albuquerque, you now know you can't move there, right? It really just is a way to approach the endless, difficult decisions that can come up. And I find it very useful. So I hope that in some way resonates with you guys. And my mouth is getting dry, so there's gonna be like one more question, but everybody got it.
You want some port?
Yeah.
All right, in that case, that one more question. What was it like holding a printed copy of your book for the first time?
Oh my God. Honestly, I don't even think I can really fully remember. It was like a validation and it was surreal. It was a surreal validation. It was like, was I really a real like writer? Did I really do this? Did I really do whatever? Right? And then suddenly you're holding this. You're like, I wrote a book. I wrote a book. I did this thing. Something that like people say they want to do and then they never do. Something that you may have said you want to do and you're like, will I ever really do it? Like, it's this watershed kind of moment where your view of yourself changes a little bit, you know? It's amazing. And I think it's something that like everyone needs, not in writing a book, but there's a story where they asked Kurt Vonnegut, you know, like the author of Slaughterhouse-Five, to come talk to like some students. And he said, no, I'm just going to tell you the same thing I'm going to tell them. Your school should take an empty room and they should fill it with musical instruments, paper, paint, pencils, clay, and anything else that someone can find as a creative expression. And they should put all their students in there and they should say, you need to find something that's creative that makes you feel good. And you don't need to do it for anyone else. You don't need to ever make a cent from it. You don't even need to share your art with anyone else. But you'll never be complete unless you find a creative outlet for yourself. And I believe that. I think all of us have creativity in it. In my family, man, it was, I'm not going to say it was like North Korea, but it wasn't, it was a little intense. I have an Asian mom, and you know, you are going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I became a doctor. So like the idea of being creative was seen as like frivolous. You know, it was seen as like a, not necessarily shameful, but like a little bit. And I never would have been complete without writing the land. The act of creation saved me. I think it literally saved my life. So yeah, that was an amazing feeling. And I hope that all of you, everyone listening, has a little bit of that. And if you've never really expressed yourself creatively, that might be the little piece that you're looking for. All right.
Wait, we need one more because
Okay.
Sharon.
All right, we'll do one more.
Sharon asked if she was invisible because she asked many questions and we didn't get to any of them.
Sharon,
But-
you're never invisible.
Not
What's up?
invisible. But if you got to a point where you had enough time to make a short story anthology for the land, would it be a possibility?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Get back to work.
Absolutely. There are so many like story. Like I said, I've got 100 pages of bullet pointed notes. I could probably take 5 of those pages and write 10 short stories easily. And there's a bunch of stuff that I want to get to, but honestly, I'm literally holding myself back because you guys have been so great to welcome me back with Alpha, and I recognize that you're extending me some grace doing that, especially having waited for the land. So the land is a priority for me. Because it's a priority for me, it's my art, but like it's also a priority for me because you guys are a priority for me. the relationship that we have is sacred to me. It doesn't mean that I don't need to that I won't do what I need to do. Like when I took this time away, I needed to do that for me. But like the same way, like people in your life that do matter to you, but it doesn't mean you do exactly what they want. That's kind of how it feels. But like you guys really, really matter to me, and I'm so appreciative to have you as fans. Thank you. None of this would be possible without you. I never ever forget it. You're super dope. So now, with that being said, I'm gonna go because I'm pretty sure there's little white flecks on my mouth, and I'm gonna avoid that obvious joke because I'm a gentleman. So as always, I'm gonna get out of here. Peace, love, Perfect Margarita. Love you all. Bye.
Cool. Now it's still going to take me a couple moments to hit stop on all these.
Yes, it will. So I'm just going to do a little dance
right, the whole
over
play,
here.
play out music.
Go,
they
go,
do
go,
it
go, 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 go. Yeah, okay.
at the end of the news broadcast or whatever.
You're a filthy pirate hooker. Yes.
And now, all right, there we go. Okay.
And that's the news.
Is that it?